if you are complaining, the ceiling like in the head, it really grows on you. If you always say like, I have to ride, it's bad weather, like if you're always complaining, it is playing with your head a little bit. So if you're saying to yourself you're enjoying it, then you're also enjoying it more. And I think especially Kristian is very aware of it, and I'm trying to get more positive. But especially last year when like training was, I wouldn't say I hated it, but I didn't see any like meaning in it, then it's really hard to dig in and do the hard work, and it's hard to really find the motivation to improve. So it's more like you show up in training, but you're not there, kind of. You're just doing the training, and to just do the training, it's not enough. You have to
kose deg.
Yeah, you have to enjoy it, or else like it's a horrible life, really.
The Norwegian method.
I'm Gustav, 3 times world champion and Kona record holder.
I'm Kristian Lundfeldt, Olympic and 3-time world champion.
I'm Dr. David Lippman, a health and human performance specialist. And welcome to the Norwegian Method podcast.
The Norwegian Method. The Norwegian Method.
Morten is rocket fuel, as we call it. The 320 drink mix is, I think, the first few times you're trying it out, like you really feel surprised how strong you will finish off the session. Like if you're going out for a long run and you start to ride with 2-3-20s in your bottle, you will feel the straight benefits by the end of the session, just because it takes a longer time until you're bunkering. Solid 160, it's a great addition to the supplement. It's like good to get something that's not just liquid, like when I'm out riding before a run session, if I want to have some quick snacks but giving me that energy, it's a great bar to get in, and also it takes a bit like more, it's more solid than just the drink mix. To benefits from a one-time code and to get 20% off your next order, check our show notes.
Welcome back to the Norwegian Method podcast, season 2, and unsurprisingly, got the two men who make it all possible here. Kristian and Gustav, welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, it's great to have you here and up in camp in Sierra Nevada, one of the places you guys call home.
Yeah. Is it better to have us on the podcast than Olav, or?
Well, we'll see.
Yeah.
We'll see how we go. The people can decide.
Yeah.
We'll see what happens when the download numbers come.
I guess it'll be a very different podcast because, of course, the last season has been very much into details. And this will maybe be a little bit more from the athlete side, I guess, how it is to be living the life we are, and hopefully you can get to know us a little bit more, like a little bit closer up.
Yeah. And we also obviously care about the details, but not the same details that Olav cares about.
Yeah, it's fair to say. That's fair to say. Well, we're in camp. So how is camp? You know, I know a little bit about your time up at Sierra Nevada, but I think people would be very interested. I know you've shared stuff on various channels, but I think sort of, how do you feel about being in camp?
I think we like the lifestyle and being on camp. Like Sierra Nevada now, second time this year. I guess I've been there I've been there every year since 2015, and normally twice a year. So it's getting up to probably well over a year. And the first time this year we were up here, had a pretty good camp. Like the winter has been good, and now it's the time of the season where we introduce a little bit more race pace and trying to get familiar with what I have to do in Yokohama in order to be on track for Paris. And Gustav is having a little different
So for me it's kind of like comeback season, or call it whatever, but this camp has been pretty good, I would say. I actually had my first kind of session together with Kristian that's not a swim since forever this weekend, and managed to have some fun on top. So it's just not like be there in the session, but actually perform on the session. So that was a good experience. And now I'm running twice a week. Hopefully I can do 3 or 4 times a week at the end of this camp. So it would be fun.
Well, let's talk about that. I mean, you guys are trained so much together. You've talked so much about how you enjoy being in each other's company and training together and having each other as training partners. How's it been not training together for a while, or training in the same place but not necessarily in the same sessions?
It is kind of, I wouldn't say painful, but obviously I want to be where Kristian is now, like preparing for the Olympics and just, targeting the smaller details in training, and not for me to just get back into training and just do the training session. For me, like, it's the pursuit of finding the small details that is really driving me. So just doing the training, it's fun, but it's not like the same. And for me also, I've been like a lot of tired and those kind of things. So I wanted to do more training, but like I couldn't really do it. And then to see Kristian nailing every session and just getting better and better, it has been challenging, but I'm also like really happy to just see him performing and see that the training we're doing, it works, but you kind of have to be good enough to make it work. But I'm slowly getting back to where I want to be, and it's fun to take part of the training again.
Yeah, and it's also been good to have you back on training outside of the pool. Like, I think, was it 3 days ago, we basically did the first ride together, like where we were doing the whole ride in a very, very long time. And the same, we had a break session, even though we didn't do the whole run part, like just to be there and sort of keeping the focus high, I think.
And getting dropped a little bit.
Yeah, but it's like we're sort of adjusting there naturally. I'm doing a little bit more work on the bike, and then you're sort of teasing me sometimes with putting in some good turns and accelerating, and that to play around in practice, it's something I haven't done in a while, and it's been good to get a taste of that back again. But
of course, it was fun.
But of course, like the training in general has been good for my side. Like, it's been steady and responding well, but those race specific sessions where you're really like being pushed outside of my comfort zone is something I've been missing, especially like in a technical course like we did yesterday, where Gustav is better cornering, and I have to just try for each lap. Like, I'm trying to remember what I did last lap in order to be close to him out of the turns, and it's good to have him back.
Awesome. So we touched on camp already. I want to get a bit more into that. So what's the difference for you guys being in camp versus being at home? And we joked before about, you said, "Oh, I'm going home soon," and I said, "Isn't this your home?" So
I think for me now, it's like the camp should have a focus. I feel like training at home, it is obviously focused, but the training camp should have kind of like an overall mission. Like altitude camp, it's for me like trying to get high volume and get the blood response that I want and everything, and then we do like a different kind of camp with heat, where you do the heat prep or some things. So for me, I feel like the altitude or the camps is easier to find one specific thing I want to work with, and then you have 4 weeks to really nail that. Of course, you do all the training around it, but we can have like a camp where you mostly focus on swimming, or if you're going into a race, like Kristian was supposed to do Abu Dhabi last time, you kind of like try to get ready for a race. So that's what I find interesting with training camps. Also, usually everything is close together. You don't waste time in traffic on a motorbike, or it is efficient.
We'll get to the motorbike in another episode. We're getting to that.
What I feel different is just luggage, I guess. Like, here I have to deal with luggage. At home, I don't have to deal with luggage. And of course, like focus-wise, if you're home for like a week or 10 days between two camps, it's often a little bit less volume, so you can also settle down a little bit more, and sort of it's more time to recover. But I feel also if you're home for a longer period of time, like we tend to get into the same bubble. Like, we tend to do more training together. Maybe the first week after having been 4 weeks or 6 weeks or 8 weeks together, then we maybe try to stay away from each other a little bit in the beginning.
Not in the swim though.
No, but like it's not
in
like
general.
It's not like I text him the first time we get home. Okay, a long ride tomorrow. But maybe after a week, like then we tend to meet up again for track sessions or break sessions, and being in the same sort of focus at home as well. So it's not like we're training crap when we are in Bergen. Yeah,
it all sounds like camp's great, but I also know that it's a bit of a challenge. What are some of the challenging parts of camp that people may not appreciate?
Before we used to share more rooms, and when you're training like swim, bike and run every day, and then you have the meals together, and then on top of that you're gonna have share a room in the evening, it is too much. Like the social battery just gets drained, and then instead of really looking forward to a training session where you can talk and enjoy the moment. You're already sick of each other before the training session starts. So then you can have like a 3-hour ride where you don't really talk to each other. But now, we're grown, we are adults, and we're getting onwards in life. So now we have separate rooms, which makes the bike rides more enjoyable. Like we have more things to talk about, and yeah, it's nicer.
It's not like it's plenty of new stuff to talk about, from the swim training in the morning to the run training in the evening, but
at least it's not like you get angry at the start.
No.
Kristian had a period where he started the session with the AirPods in. Like he has his AirPods with him in case like he wants to ride harder or just get sick of the conversation. But I think it was 3 weeks where he started with them in. And then it was in Font-Romeu once at least.
Okay.
Yeah. And then you just know that it's not gonna be a heavy conversation in this ride.
But we had like one season where we traveled basically 8 months straight, and then sometimes training together with others is nice, but if you are on this sort of schedule where every session is with someone else, you don't get this space for yourself. We're just like out running, and sometimes it's nice to just be by yourself running, sometimes it's nice to be by yourself and listening to music, and sometimes it's nice to be in company. And not that I was forced to be in like training with others for such a long time, but like it's just naturally happening that you don't get that free space. And then I guess I just needed some time out, but still do the training.
I feel like I need to get a counselor for you two and help you two to communicate about when you want to train alone and when you want to train together.
It's very simple. Yes, no, yes, no.
And you know, if you come down to the breakfast with your AirPods in, and you don't take them out when they then it's also
it's a bad day.
And when he comes down with the AirPods in, and then he's gonna eat, and especially if it's some liquid, then it's like, this is not a pleasant sound for the podcast viewer, but it's like because he has noise cancelling, and it's just it's very bad being in the same room with him. But luckily it's not often that happens.
Very good, I like it.
Join Santara Tech members Clubhouse. You get exclusive content, in-person and online events, offers from partners, and so much more. Join at santaratech.com/membership.
So we talked about you two as training partners. You've had other people come in. How does that happen? I think people would be fascinated by this. I mean, you'll have lots of applicants, of course, but how do people come in?
I think it's more when you go out for races and you meet athletes and you tend to do some training sessions together before the races, and you feel that it's working well and it's like good company, and then you maybe try to meet up again and do more sort of building on from there, because it's not like we do prefer to have more people than just the two of us. Like we want to train with more people, like to get more social inputs. But then it's more like if it fits in, like if it's a natural match and you feel that they are giving something back to the group, because it's not like we want to carry someone around for 2 or 3 months. Like it's nice to share the training load.
Yeah, but some of the issues is like we are kind of dialed into what we want and what we like, and we know like time is important as well. So if you have someone there who's not respecting of the time or just not really fitting in, then they may be here for a while, but then they're like switched out. But we have our set way of training also, so it's hard for others to come in.
We have the rule when it's a group ride that if we're meeting up 12 o'clock, then 12:01, then we're sort of giving everyone 1 minute slack, but 12:01, then we go start, and then we go. Then if you're late, you have a good amount of work ahead of you to catch the group.
Yeah, and do you guys start out intentionally hard?
No.
No, okay.
Depends who's late.
Yeah, I think me and Kristian, we can give each other slack if it's not like all the time. If it's just once in a while, then it's okay. But if it's like you're coming late for every session, then it's of course very annoying.
Yeah, Of course, and you guys have got a relationship as well. It's
Yeah.
different when people are stepping in and understanding and all that stuff.
And that was one of the things we had to get Olav to understand, because he is not always good with time management. And of course, if you have one session a day, being 1 hour late is not an issue. But if you have 3 hours or 3 sessions a day, like even 5 minutes, it starts to get a bit annoying, because like you have to eat and then you have to cut down on the break between. So Olav was not very good with timing in the start, and he's not perfect yet, but he's getting better at least.
Do you leave on the bike if he's late?
We can leave the stuff
yeah.
next to the car.
Yeah.
If we're late.
And then you just have to manage.
just send him the pin, like live location, and then he got to catch us.
I love it. That's awesome. Let's speak a bit more about Olav. I think obviously people are interested in him as a human. What's it like being coached by him?
It's great. First of all, I think we both feel very lucky and privileged to be able to work with him, because if you have listened to the season 1, like, he's one of the most dedicated coaches you will ever find, and also the knowledge is insane. And he's also, it's basically like having a professor. Like, he's not having the professor title, and he doesn't like to be called a professor since he doesn't have it, but he's like living with a professor who's sort of teaching you everything like every single day, and it's helping us developing as not just athletes but also like humans. And I think
and he's the guy who needs to be kind of used correctly. So if you're not the right kind of athlete, I think it can almost be hurtful having him as a coach, because he is so like into the details, and you have to have the like base knowledge of training first, and then you can kind of build his knowledge on top. So if you can combine his knowledge with just like normal training, it's unbeatable. It's very, very cool to be a part of.
But I feel where he is good is that even though he's having the knowledge, he also are giving us space to sort of
play around
and make decisions in the training. And he also know that his sort of limitation with coaching is that he's not maybe as much into the details of the sport itself. Like, he doesn't watch triathlon races unless we are racing. So it's sort of the more, I don't know, the feeling of the sport is more like the decisions, and if we have like input that we need to improve for like the next race, or like strategy wise, he's very open to get input, and then he comes with his knowledge and trying to sort of understand what we are meaning, and then sort of together we are finding a way.
That's certainly something that surprised me about him, was how little he took notice of other people and your competitors. He's very much focused on you two, and like not even so interested in other people at all. So.
Yeah, and it's not like to disrespect all the athletes. It's more like his interest isn't in the sport. Like, it's more to help us and sort of understand how we are working and maximizing our potential.
Yeah.
So typically, when we want something changed, we will say, for example, instead of 14 times 1,000, we want to do 6 times 1,000, and then some 400s, and then we would say why we want it, and then he would say why it's not smart to do that way. And we were trying to like say that we want to do that because he wants some speed, and then he would say, yeah, but you don't need speed, you need to lower your Vela Max. And so we try to like negotiate almost. So we have some meetings where we have 1 hour of negotiation, and then it ends up being what he wanted in the start, but we at least try to understand why we are doing what we're doing.
So I think it's like good floating, like So sometimes if you come with suggestion of the session,
but then you need to be prepared to fight for it.
But I think that's good. That's just show that you have to have a reason for it. Like, and of course, like, none of us turns up to training because we want to do short course. No, I mean
short course.
We want to do short course, but like short.
They don't want the easy way out.
Short turns. On training, like, we are there to do the work, and it's not to make it easier for ourselves.
And has that changed over time for you guys? Has he given you more control as you guys have developed?
Maybe, I don't know.
No, he wasn't too strict in the beginning. Like when he came in and
Yeah, he just came to learn. Yeah,
he came to learn and to do measurements. So he came in the background in the beginning when we worked together with national team and Arild, and then in the beginning, like he didn't sort of like just put like hammer down and said like this is how we have to do everything. So he's been sort of giving like small drips of and taking like one thing at a time, because if you suddenly have to flip around everything you do in one day, then it's very difficult to know what to do as well as an athlete.
Yeah, for sure.
You forget how your body is responding suddenly.
Yeah, and these meetings that you guys, where you negotiate training, is this pre-training, end of the week, before a block?
No, I feel like we have been kind of a little bit out of the routine, but usually it's in the evenings, and then we set the agenda of the next day, and then we go through this Excel sheet where we are basically trying to optimize our training load. So we have a questionnaire basically, where we are evaluating ourselves and how the training is going, and then at the end we have the plan for tomorrow, where we are setting the agenda, and there is typically when we fight for the session.
I think it's good to have those kind of meetings, because then everyone is aware of what we're doing the next day and what the reason for it is, and everyone can sort of come with their inputs, and then the training is suddenly not something you just sort of tick off. It's more like you do every day with an ambition of doing it as good as possible.
Yeah.
So sometimes we can adjust the session because we think that in the next race it will be a longer hill, and we therefore have to do more hill reps on the run. Or we can try to adjust the sessions to have a goal in them as well. And like one season here we had the special Bermuda edition session where we tried to work on like accelerations in order to do the same amount of acceleration we had to do in Bermuda for the small hill up.
Corkscrew Hill or Flora Duffy Hill now.
Yeah, and the fact that we had that session, it was also named the Bermuda session, then it makes it sort of easier to go into the bubble on the training day, almost like it's a race day, and it's easy also to find the extra motivation.
And I really love when the session have a purpose, because then of course you have to some days adjust the session either up or down, and if you know what the purpose of the session is, if you're trying to extend your or increase your capacity, then of course you want to go longer and not maybe a higher intensity. So some days you want to go faster, other days you want to go longer, and if you know what the purpose of the session is, you know that maybe today is the day you go 8 times 10 minutes instead of 7. So if you know really what you want, it's easier to get it.
Thanks to Plasma-Aid for sponsoring the episode. Plasma-Aid caught me a little bit with surprise earlier this winter when I started using it, and I realized that suddenly we're having a jump of 10% of my oxygen uptake by implementing Plasma-Aid in my daily nutrition. I use Plasma-Aid before my hard sessions and also every evening. Over the last few years, I've been feeling more like stiff in the morning when I'm waking up, but I do feel like this morning, I feel better when I'm waking up. Like I can sort of stand easier without knee pains, and I'm less stiff in the morning than what I was before after starting using Plasma-Aid in the evening. Experience the benefits yourself by using the code TRI20, that's TRI20, to get 20% off your next purchase. Check the show notes below for the code.
Yeah, that makes tons of sense. That was actually going to be my next question, is if you understand that, how much ownership do you have of changing that? It sounds like he's happy for you to change that, particularly if he's not around, because that's probably the other misconception, is you guys train alone or without a coach for quite a bit of the year.
Yeah. So then we are more like online. Olav is sometimes a bit hard to reach, but it's we have the program, and we are also discussing between me and Kristian, and we have a lot of knowledge ourselves.
Yeah.
But Olav is a busy man. He is wanted by a lot of people. So if you're on the fly in a training session, we will maybe try to call him, but usually we just adjust everything ourselves on the fly. And
It's not often we call him mid-session to ask him, can I quit this session? I'm feeling awful. Like, then we take the decision.
Yeah. I'd say that's what I've noticed of him, working with him a little bit as I have, is his superpower is that if you're in front of him, nothing else is happening in the world.
Yeah.
But if you want to get hold of him and he's doing something else, he's almost impossible to catch.
I still feel we are high prioritized. Like we can always call him and he will always like clean his schedule for us because we are the main priority. But his position as a coach is maybe very different to how a normal coach is. Like, he's not there to necessarily tell you what to do, but more to help you understand what you have to do.
Yeah, he's developing your abilities and going forward. What does that mean for you too? Does that mean any thoughts of coaching? I know this is actually something I was going to ask in another podcast, but given you guys are effectively helping each other already, all that sort of stuff.
Yeah, it would be cool, but I think I want more like a group of athletes, and I guess one-on-one coaching is also nice. But if I would go into coaching, I would maybe go for like a group setting, and then maybe live more in camp, and then make the group better. That sounds challenging and fun.
Yeah, like I think we will always be a part of sport, even though when we retire one day as athletes. So before I was maybe more into like maybe trying to travel to a country and just start something from scratch. Like when we trained with the Japanese squad, it was 2 Canadians who was like there and sort of running the program and trying to make the Japanese team as good as possible. And it would be cool to travel to do something similar, like, and see if you can build something from basically nothing. A little bit like they are doing in China now with is it Brett Sutton, who is there and trying to make something that is not like Chinese triathletes hasn't been strong in the past, but they will probably be in the future.
Yeah, that's really cool. It's really cool to hear that. And you touched before Olav came into camp originally, wanted to learn, transitioned into coaching you, but I've also noticed recently you've had some other coaches coming into your camp to give you guys a hand that are different. How's that? And how do you select coaches that come in, or is it Olav that selects them? How does that all work?
Also, we've actually been working with Orjan for a very long time, so that's maybe the one you're referring to. He came in actually before Olav. So I think in 2014 he was helping us through the Olympic team in Norway with altitude training. So back then we were still juniors, or first year senior, and then we had this 10-year project where Tokyo Olympic Games were the main goal, and we got support from the Olympic team to travel to altitude camps already back in 2014 because they thought that altitude training would be beneficial. And then they put us in contact with Orjan, who was one of the guys behind the philosophy of how we are doing altitude training in Norway. And then he sort of went a little bit more silent, or like he worked.
He basically retired, no?
Yeah, he retired. And then the last few years he's been coming.
We forced him out of retirement. We needed his help on the swim.
But, yeah, so he's also a former swimmer. Like, he was in the Mexico Olympics in '68 and been coaching a lot of big swim teams. So he definitely know what we need to do on the swim. So it's more like we have to get it done. So it's also good. He's more a typical coach than Olav. Like, so he's more on deck and traditional, like follows up there and then. And I feel they two are also working well together to optimizing the program.
Correct me if I'm wrong, he's coached a bunch of medal-winning swimmers as well, hasn't he, in his time? Yeah. He didn't just win them himself, he's coached a bunch of medal-winning.
Yeah, so he's a legendary coach and just a legendary guy. He's now 78, I think. And he still goes out windsurfing or kiting like 4 hours in the wintertime in Norway, in the ocean. It is very inspiring.
When we were in January, he basically trained the same hours as we did. Like, we did a swim training in the morning, and then he went up randonnée skiing for like 4 hours in the...
And then we saw him for dinner. Yeah. So he's a legend.
That's awesome. And we're in Sierra Nevada at the moment. You mentioned Fontremeur before. talk to me about the differences, similarities, which one you prefer, why you choose between the two.
Yeah, so we have used not very many different places, but a few for altitude training. So here in Sierra Nevada and Flagstaff and Morocco and Font-Romeu, and that's it, I think.
Yeah.
But it's, yeah, some slight difference in altitude. So here we are at 2,300, which is pretty high. Font-Romeu is like 1,800 and Flagstaff is 2,100, I think. And we usually go here early season because then speed is not of the essence. But I find it, especially Kristian, maybe not that much, but I find it quite challenging to do the right speed work at this altitude. And it's also a different kind of atmosphere in Font-Romeu. It's more homely, kind of. This is more raw, I would say. But both are great locations. And maybe Font-Romeu is more, better for staying even longer. Here, you're not forced to stay at the center, but it is kind of simpler to stay at the center because it's nothing up here. If you want to shopping or want to buy some food, you have to drive for like 30 minutes. So it's not ideal of staying outside. And at the center, you kind of get sick of the food and the location after 3-4 weeks. So now we're kind of pushing the limits. But in Font, we're usually staying in the cabin and making our own food. Kristian is making a killer pizza and I'm making risotto. So it's a good combination of using both here and Font.
But the interesting thing is that like last year we were measuring the blood volume throughout the whole season, and even though Font was like lower, we still was able to build on what we got up here in Sierra Nevada. And then we went to Font-Romeu. So even though after the camp in Font-Romeu that was at a lower altitude, I was still able to get more hemoglobin. Yep. So it's not just the altitude itself, I guess, but we have a great experience to use both of them, and also the mix is nice.
And here is also really cool because there's a lot of athletes staying here, a lot of different disciplines like cycling and running and swimming. So we get like not really talking too much to other people, but you got like small insights of what others are doing and just meeting people.
Yeah, I mean, I saw a bunch of Ineos riders on the way up here today when I saw them. And I remember a couple of years ago when I came to see you guys here, Javier Gomez was sort of hanging around in the background and you guys just sort of said hello to him. It's a bit bizarre for me to see these, obviously all these people just around. I mean, it's an Olympic training center, so it makes sense.
Yeah, playing ping pong with Chris Froome. Kristian, you beat him.
Yep.
Yeah.
That was last year, I think.
Yeah.
That's awesome. I love that.
Thank you, VO2 Master, for sponsoring this episode. VO2 Master is a great tool for me. Training is my job, and VO2 Master makes my job easier. So one of the great things about VO2 Master is that you can use it by yourself. You don't need a tech or a lab representative to help you around. You can do everything yourself, and especially with the Garmin integration and a simple to use app. So you can use it for a lot of things. The way I use it is to sometimes measure efficiency when it comes to running technique or testing shoes, or there's a lot of different ways to test efficiency. And also out there in the real world, testing VO2 max. It's good to go into the lab, but nothing beats the real world. That's where we're competing, and that's where we want to be the best. So VO2 Master helps us a great deal there.
Listeners are going to kill me if I don't ask a bit more about training differences. You sort of mentioned already lower altitudes, closer to races, doing a bit more speed stuff there. How does volume differ between the two? So higher versus lower?
In high altitude and low altitude?
Or higher altitude here at Sierra Nevada versus say, something like Font-Romeu where it's a little bit lower altitude?
So in general, I don't feel the altitude too much. So I can basically go out on the track here and run almost the same threshold sessions as I'm doing at sea level. So, and definitely in Font-Romeu, I don't feel it different massively towards threshold. Maybe above threshold, it's a little bit different. But it's more like, I think it's more the timing of the season. Like we go to altitude early enough, so there's also timing where we have to do more volume, and then we're heading down to sea level at a time where I have to do more high intensity. So then it's also like we're bringing the volume more down naturally because of the timing in terms of how early it is for the race.
Yeah.
And Gustav is having a little bit different
Yeah,
approach.
especially now. Now it's more, just volume and try to get my numbers up back to normal before I start having a bit more intensity. And also in Fontomeux, it's kind of easier to ride more fast. Here in Sierra, it's just down and up again. So of course you ride really fast downhill, but you're not really riding the downhill. So you're not that good at pushing flat pace. But in Font, you have this ability to train for flat pace, which is not always easy. And you see a lot of people just training on the turbo trainer. They have insane power numbers, but it is something different in riding outdoors and feeling the wind and doing those kind of things. And I think Fontomeux is a great place to really learn those skills and then just keep on developing them.
But you're also normally having to have a slower pace and power at threshold and lower intensity than what you have to do in sea level. So you also have to be maybe more go earlier down in order to compensate for the lack of speed that you're doing up here because you're feeling the altitude more.
But I feel also like that my speed usually is not my limiting factor.
Yeah.
Like for you, it's usually not the limiting factor either. But sometimes you need a bit more higher intensity before you're in shape. But for me, I need a kind of like a bit more volume, a little bit more just threshold training, and then the speed comes naturally. So I don't feel like I have to have a lot of race pace before a race.
Yeah. How does that work for you guys? As you know, this year is obviously, or the last 12 to 18 months have been a bit of an exception, but before that, you guys are doing a lot of training together. You come up to altitude. Kristian doesn't feel a thing. Gustav struggles a little bit more. Does that mean Kristian does all the work on the bike and you sort of sit on his wheel, or what's the story? How does it look?
Yeah, most of the times, like when we're climbing up here, like you don't get a massive drafting benefit.
Like, you're riding in 15k per hour, and he's like just standing there and dancing up the hill. So usually I just watch him, fly up the hill while I'm stuck there in the rear. But
we go by lactate.
Yeah,
and we also are aware that there is different in altitude. In the same way, if it only gets 45 degrees, I will be cooked and he will be flying. Yeah. So then we have not a reason, but we understand also why the training or the difference between us are as they are. So it's not like I feel I'm winning by dropping him on day one in altitude.
Yeah, no, that makes sense.
And if he can stay with me on the track, then I know that he's going to be dangerous when we get down.
Yeah.
So I'm trying to not let it affect me, but it's like. It is, I would say stressful, but it is I want to be good in altitude as well. But I know that the benefit is just as good for me than it is for him, even though we have a little bit different of speed and training.
Yeah. And is that something you guys think about consciously, talk to Olav about consciously, is how you can help each other given strengths and weaknesses? Are you trying to put Kristian to the sword, going around bends so that Kristian has to work harder so that he's better on race day? And is it something like that, or is it more just we do what we wish and naturally that happens?
We did at this brick session this weekend, but that's now I'm not in a position where I'm really have to maximize my training. Now I can use more to just try to help Kristian and more have fun, because my limiting factor is not really it is not mental, I would say, but it's a lot of different factors. So if I can just do the training and have fun and help Kristian at the same time and just enjoy it, I wouldn't lose anything on it. But if I'm a week before a big race, then of course I would focus more on just doing what is perfect for me. And what is perfect for me is usually not doing the session so Kristian will get better. But if it is, then I of course would do it.
Yeah, I think it's more to try to use each other to just maximizing the training. Simply as that.
Yeah, sharing reps on the track, that sort of stuff makes a ton of sense. I mean, it's very common. So,
and also if you know how to make someone weak, just on the bike, like if you move yourself to the far end of the road to avoid someone to get the win, if it's a crosswind, then also you know that by doing a little bit different, you can also help him. So if you know how to help someone, you also know how to destroy them, and to be aware of that, it can be beneficial for a race.
Yep, for sure. You mentioned enjoyment, both of you, and you're enjoying this, I can tell, which is good. It's always helpful as an interviewer when people are enjoying it. I was out at the track earlier, you're doing some testing. The vibes were unbelievable out there today. And it's obviously something, I've talked about it extensively in the series as well, enjoyment. Can you touch on a little bit about that? I don't know how to phrase a question specifically, but it strikes me as you guys, people think from the outside you guys are very serious and your training's very like, it's just sort of, you guys are machines and do this, but actually I think being in the environment a little bit is like, you actually really enjoy it. It's more like play for you. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, so Kristian is, especially in the swimming now, it's not a really good English translation, but it says, "Nå må vi kose oss." It means basically to enjoy it, but more in it's like a cozy, yeah, kind of, but cozy is not really the same, but it's like, yeah, vi må kose oss, which means, yeah, to enjoy the swim. You don't swim just to swim, even though we're not big fan of swim sessions always, but we have to still try to enjoy it.
Yeah, that makes sense. And what else do you do to sort of keep the environment light? I mean, obviously jokes within each other. You were joking before the podcast with some Instagram reels that were very topical, but
this is the podcast right here.
Yeah, exactly. So that sort of stuff's obviously big. We had jokes before about coffee and other people who don't drink coffee.
Yeah.
Is it that sort of thing you try and bring humor, or is it other things that are part of it? How do you keep the environment light?
If you are complaining, the ceiling like in the head, it really grows on you. If you always say like, oh, I have to ride, it's bad weather, like if you're always complaining, it is playing with your head a little bit. So if you're saying to yourself you're enjoying it, then you're also enjoying it more. And I think especially Kristian is very aware of it, and I'm trying to get more positive. But especially last year when like training was, yeah, I wouldn't say I hated it, but I didn't see any like meaning in it. Then it's really hard to dig in and do the hard work, and it's hard to really find the motivation to improve. So it's more like you show up in training, but you're not there, kind of, you're just doing the training, and to just do the training, it's not enough. You have to
cruise it.
Yeah, you have to enjoy it, or else like it's a horrible life, really.
But that's like if it's pouring down and you have to do 4 hours, like you can either complain or you can try it. Like nobody enjoys, like it's not like you're looking out, oh, it's raining down, pouring down, I want to ride. But then if you just say like, okay, this is going to build character, and then just going like grouping up and going out for the ride, it's still, you're feeling harder, I guess. Like you feel you're getting thicker skin, and
that's kind of the vibe with Sierra Nevada as well. Like it's nothing here to make it a pleasure to train, except it's really convenient. But like the rooms here and like everything is very sterile in one way, but it's still a great place for training, because you just know that, yeah, this makes us hard.
But that's also something I've tried to do over the last 12 months, I would say, like, is to strip down everything outside of training. Because if you have things that's happening, like if you have
podcasts,
tons of podcasts and like content creation and like everything, like you're suddenly only putting in like swim session in the morning just to get it done. Like it's not really a session you're looking forward to, but it's more like just to tick off the box. Then the training is less joyful as well. But if you put yourself in locations and with athletes where you actually enjoy the training and you don't do too much around it, I think it's also easier to enjoy the training. So it's also like to strip down the schedule.
The training has to be the highlight of the day. Like that is also something we say. If you are looking more forward to dinner than training, then you're not doing the training as you should. Like training is always the highlight.
And especially the hard sessions.
Yeah.
It's like you should look forward to a track session.
Yeah. So today we had a long-ish swim, and we made both a conscious decision to like take it a little bit down, because the swim tomorrow, it's something we both look forward to, and yeah, I think we're gonna perform there.
It's a long threshold session tomorrow, and by taking it down, it doesn't mean making it shorter. we just made a 3K straight swim into a 500, 400, 300, 200, 100 twice.
And I did use Zoomer, so like swimmer, so I did make it a bit easier on myself, but so we kind of have to look forward to the bigger things and then just make that the highlight of the day and the week.
Awesome. I think it's a great way to end it for people to really take away from this, all the stuff. We got future episodes coming out, and we're going to touch on things like some of the stuff you touched on, the content you guys create, all that sort of stuff. We're going to touch a bit more on the year and the struggle that's been there. So we'll get to all that. But thanks again for listening to the Norwegian Method podcast. Please do share the podcast if you can with a friend. Subscribe on our social media channels as well as on the podcast players. And we will see you next time on the Norwegian Method.
Thank you.
Nothing from you, Kristian?
Oh, thank you.